Go.
Good evening and welcome to the Whistleblower. My name is Ian Trent, and together with our intrepid panel and special guests, we'll talk all things water polo over the next hour or so. Speaking of our panel, it's a very good evening to the former Australian Olympic representative and men's team coach, John Fox. Hi, John.
Good evening, Ian, and good evening, panel. And great to be back on after the last episode where I was in sunny Queensland, back to nice, cold, brisk Canberra.
And you've been to Dreamtime at the O, was it?
Went to Dreamtime at the Optus on Saturday. We had a training camp over in Perth and managed to schedule it so I could sneak out for a couple of hours to the footy and watch the Bombers play. Fantastic stadium, fantastic atmosphere. Not the result that I wanted, but yeah, it was a great promotion for footy.
Never mind, nearly got it. Gave us a little thrill in the last quarter anyhow, which is good. Speaking of the AFL, he's black and white through and through. He's a happy boy this week. Australia's doyen of refereeing, Danny Flav, the happy magpie. How are you?
Good evening, Minnie. Good evening, all you guys. Yes, very happy. Big win by us. Didn't move anywhere up the ladder, but it's a win. So it's only way is up from now on.
An international show, you know. Let's cross now over to Singapore and their director of coaching. Good evening for the first time this season, Paul Oberman. Obi, how are you?
Good, Minnie. G'day, guys. How are we all? Welcome to warm or hot, sweaty, humid Singapore up here. Not cold in Australia, but yeah, no, all going good up here. Happy the West Coast Eagles won too, boys, by the way. So
yeah, just think back 10 days ago or whatever it was, 8 days ago, they were getting slapped by the mighty Red and Blacks. Okay, thanks for joining us, Paul, though. And he's a special guest, but he's also on the panel tonight as well. A good evening to the new president of the International Swimming Hall of Fame, Russel McKinnon. Hi, Russ.
Yeah, good evening, guys. How are you?
Really well, and we're humbled to have you on. I mean, that's a pretty highfalutin title. Congratulations.
Yeah, no, it was quite a shock when somebody said to me, would you be interested in taking on the chairmanship of the selection panel? And I said, yeah, I'll be keen. They went to the board. They came back a few weeks later, said, you've got it. And by the way, you're the chair of the Masters Hall of Fame as well. So I'm looking for some, good-looking guys out there. Can't see any tonight.
Not too many around here. Maybe it'd be close, but mate, that'd be about it.
That's it.
Okay, that's about it. Okay, let's have some notes on communication, and we should have a slide coming up shortly. While we're looking at that, Uncle Noel's doing the job there. If you look at your screen, if you're live with us, the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, if you press that, we can see that little box and you can type in any sort of question you like anytime during the show and we'll do our best to answer it. Okay, so there it is. There's all our social media bits and pieces there. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel there, you'll be able to see a replay of this wonderful evening's events. So that is great. And if you'd like to complain, Uncle Phil is sitting there waiting for us. He's not feeling well tonight, but he's sitting there waiting for any sort of comment, whether it's positive or negative, down the bottom there with our email address there. And also look at our Instagram page as well and Facebook page too, and you'll get it all there. Okay, so first up, let's have a look at some of the news of the week, or the fortnight, I should say. Gentlemen, I thought the biggest news was the Australian men's coach, Elvis Fatovic. He'll effectively depart Australian water polo, the scene here, at the end of the Tokyo Olympics. What did you think about that, Foxy?
It was a bit of a shock. We were up on the Gold Coast at the Masters and the country championships, and word got around very quickly that there was going to be an announcement. I think it was on a Thursday afternoon. And yeah, there were lots of rumours flying around. And yeah, when the release came out, everyone was a bit, oh, okay, well, where do we go from here? And what's going to happen with the Olympic team? And we were reassured, obviously, that nothing is going to happen until after the Olympics, but it's a big move for Elvis. And yeah, which, well, we hear it's Barcelona, but I don't know if that's been confirmed yet.
You want to make a little gossip, Obi? What do you hear?
Well, you know, I think, you know, it could be Barcelona. I think looking at the news of last night, being that Pro Reco have now lost their coach in Gabby Hernandez, he, you know, resigned himself. No, not pushed, not anything. And I think that, you know, Elvis is such a well-respected, well-renowned coach that it's also possible that Pro Reco wouldn't be beyond the realms of what he's capable of as well and going to. I think for Elvis, knowing Elvis, I think either place by the water would be very nice. Either way, Barceloneta or Pro Reco there.
Do you think there'd be a bidding war for Elvis? As you said, he's such well respected and held very highly in the water polo community. You think there may be to get him?
I think definitely there would be. You know, just touring with him, the amount of people that know him, the amount of people that want to have a conversation, that you know, want to take him to dinner. You know, I think that definitely, you know, as soon as his name got brought up, for sure, people would have been on the phone to him.
Yeah.
You know, can we hire you? Yeah, I mean the Greek coach position is also up for grabs. Although there's, you know, rumoured to be Chus Martin, who left Barcelona. It's rumoured he's going to be the new coach. But I mean that's also another position that he could very easily do as well. So yeah, I think you know, Elvis is such well respected that, you know, any he could do any position.
Well, gentlemen, what effect on Australia?
I think once we get over the shock, which is like always when you lose a respected coach, a Fox, as you know, it's the shock first, and then we've got to settle down and work out what we're going to do. Or sorry, what Australian water polo are going to do.
Well, what are we going to do?
Well, I think that's, you know, yet to be decided. I think, you know, they'll obviously put out the job applications and they'll get probably plenty of people wanting to apply. You know, I think the decision then comes down to Water Polo Australia and what they actually want from the coach. And, you know, that may change from what Elvis's position currently is.
I heard in the grapevine that might be sort of a different setup for the coach this time. So re hours and what they're doing and payment and all that sort of stuff. So be all taken on board, I suppose.
When you say a different setup, what do you mean by that?
Oh no, I've only heard rumours, many of what's going on about how they're going to employ the coach and what the coach is going to do and what aspects of water polo and coaching and where he's going to go with that. So, but like everything, it's just a rumour.
Okay.
All about money.
Oh, I think it has to be about money. It really does. I think, unfortunately, for Australian water polo, you know, that's how it's going to be, and we've got to live with it.
Well, you can coach, you can have a job, and you can coach the national side. It can be done.
Yeah.
So it might have to be done. Foxy, what do you think about that?
No, I'm good.
Hang on. Who's popped in here?
Yeah, it's definitely no secret that we are Australian water polo is short on money, and that may detract from bringing out some coaches that might otherwise be looking for a national role. Yeah, I don't know, Ian, whether you can work and you can coach, but these days it's much more of a profession, and it doesn't have to be full-time national senior team either. And I think that's what Danny's referring to, that we could be possibly looking at the coach filling a couple of roles, not just the senior coaching role.
It's going to be very interesting. Okay, Obi.
Sorry, Minnie.
Yeah.
Foxy, do you think that's sort of something like Erkin did back when we were playing? You know, being the national coach and then filling a role as, you know, the national institute coach, or he was the, you know, a bit of the AIS coach, along with Don there for a while. You know, Charlie, sort of the same. Is that sort of where we're heading as a sport?
That would be lovely if we were. I mean, that takes into account that the AIS and the State Institute would take on those responsibilities. And we've got a changing climate at the moment with bidding, obviously, for the 32 Olympics. That's a possibility, Paul. But yeah, at the moment, I don't think there's a number of options and models out there that they have to consider.
Yeah.
Going to be very interesting. Okay, and Obi, we hear that Aaron Young is doing particularly well in Europe.
Yep, certainly played really well. Unfortunately, Pro Recco lost the Italian Championship, but they came back bigger and better and won the European Champions League. They beat his old team, Ferencváros. They beat him 9-6 in the final. They probably looked really comfortable in all three games that they played on the weekend. Aaron Young has now won 3 Champions League trophies, you know, which, you know, more than any other Australian has done. And, you know, 2017 with Solnok, 2019 with Ferencváros, and now 2021 with Pro Recco. You'd have to be saying 2023. Where are you, Aaron? I'm going to put some money on you.
We've got to go early.
Let's hope he keeps up his form for the Olympics, eh? That would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Now, Foxy, you mentioned that you're fresh from a training camp with the junior men. How did that go?
Yeah, it was excellent, Minnie. What I think I alluded to last time, we split the camp, and it's of the junior men. It's what they call the youth men. So it was they'll be under 18 next year, and this was for West Australian, and we had one South Australian player over there, and it was nice to get to see another group of athletes and make the comparison. And obviously, we've got some decisions to make with upcoming camps. We've got the Borno 4s training in a training camp against the Borno 3 boys next month. We're not sure where yet. And of course, then we have the Borno 5/6s looking to go to New Zealand. So I'm speaking with all the coaches from both respective camps at the moment to see if we can come up with agreeable squads for both those camps and the New Zealand trip.
Okay, keep us informed, please. Let's look at Clubland now. Last time we spoke, we alluded to Dusan Kristic leaving the Sydney Uni Lions. I notice on seekdocs.com, not that I'm looking for a job, but Sydney Uni are, and they're advertising. So if you want to be a technical director and you've got the skills, not quite there for the Australian job, but down a little bit, Sydney Uni. Have a look at seek.com. Okay. Any other news any other goss, gentlemen, before we start talking about refereeing?
Well, I spoke with Boris Magetta, who's the president of WWR, the Referees Association, about maybe looking at putting the whistleblower on through WWR, through their website. And he said 100% not a problem. So hopefully next time we go, we'll be put on through WWR as well.
Okay, that sounds absolutely fantastic. And there's a couple of people itching to become involved with our social media as well. So,
Minnie, do we just with the we know that the women's team has been announced. I think there's an announced week for the men's team. I believe it's next week when they're in Canberra. So by the time we have the next whistleblower, we should know the makeup and the composition of the men's team.
Any tips?
No, I'm not.
Elvis Spatovich, head coach.
I do have one. Paul, you might be able to fill me in on this one. Pavlard to Europe next year and possibly Serbia, I believe.
I haven't heard anything about that yet. But look, I know 2 years ago when he came back, or a year and a half ago when he came back from the States and was looking to continue his water polo. We certainly looked at a number of clubs in Europe at the time, and through the help of Aaron and also John O'Cottrell, we were able to possibly get a couple of offers there. Luke decided to stay in Australia and train with the national team, which seems to be going quite well for him.
Yeah, I hear Beograd are throwing money out at players at the moment, so just keep your eyes out for that one.
Well, I think there's a lot of clubs out there changing a lot of players right now. Going by finish of the Champions League, it's been huge wholesale changes at some clubs.
Who doesn't like a 6'5" left-hander?
Absolutely.
Who can shoot and swim? Okay. Everybody loves them. All right. Let's talk refereeing now. And Danny, here we go. Tonight we're talking about penalties.
Yes, we'll just sort of revisit it again because it's still a question that we get asked at every competition we go to, from juniors through to masters, as in the Fox at the Gold Coast last week. We're still having little problems of understanding it and why we call it sometimes and why we don't call it sometimes. So look, it's just one of those things. We'll just sort of go over it. They've sort of brought in a zone now. If you're coming in on the angle, it's 1 metre outside the post and at a 45 degree, or if you're on the goal line coming in from an angle, then it can't be called a penalty, no matter if you're in front with the ball or without the ball. So we'll sort of go over a little bit, saying, once again, if you're in front of the goals with only the goal to beat and the defender behind you and you get fouled holding the ball or not holding the ball, it's a penalty. No problems whatsoever. So what they're talking about now is on the angle, it's a zone of about 1 metre from the goal post away from the goal. So either side of the goal post, 1 metre each side, and you're coming in on say a 45 degree angle, and you're only got the goalie to beat once again with the defender behind you, and you are grabbed ball with the ball or without the ball, that's the penalty. What they're saying is you get any closer to the goal line, and then it's not from where a probable goal would have been scored. So in that case, if you're holding the ball and you get grabbed from behind, then it's nothing. But if you're not holding the ball and you get grabbed from behind, then it's an exclusion. So it can't be a penalty because it's not from where a probable goal would have been scored.
Okay.
And making that effort to go forward to try and score the goal.
You have to, thanks, Paul. You have to be seen by the referee to be trying to score, to want to score a goal. So you can't actually hold the ball up and wait for a defender to grab you and play for the penalty. No, the referees have been instructed that they have to be wanting to the player to score a goal, or from the referee, we want to be seen to be trying to score a goal. So no playing for a penalty. And if you do that, the referees just call play on. Oh, there's that little area. Fantastic. Thanks, Noel. So there's a sort of zoning area, 1 metre outside each goal post, and coming in at a 45 degree angle.
So would an attacker be smart if they had front water to balk, if they're just waiting that extra second or two for someone to grab them from behind?
Absolutely.
Balking, what's wrong with that?
Nothing at all. As long as you don't look behind to find out where the defender is. If you keep going towards goal, balking the ball, that's not a problem. But as soon as you balk and look behind to see where he is, and if he grabs you, that's not from you trying to score a goal. So the referees should not play that, and it's just play on.
Okay.
And that situation there, that diagram we got up now, that's a penalty because he's inside that area, that zone, is inside the 6 metres, and he's holding the ball and being fouled from behind. Penalty.
Right.
So, and we'll just, I don't know if I've got anything else there. There we are. Yeah. So this, Okay, this one here, it's not a penalty because the attacking player is not facing the goal. Okay, because he's not facing the goal, it can't be a penalty. And if he's holding the ball, it can't be an exclusion either. But if he's in that situation and he lets go of the ball and then he's grabbed from behind the side, it can be an exclusion, but it can't be a penalty because he's not directly facing the goal.
No good for the backhanders then.
No good if you turn around for a backhand. You're never going to get anything, unfortunately. So, yeah. And I'll just briefly touch on another one that's come up of late where there used to be problems with possession of the ball. Now they're saying that you couldn't call a timeout unless you're in possession of the ball. Now, if the ball lands, if a player hasn't got the ball or someone's not in control of the ball, then you couldn't call a timeout because you're not in possession of the ball. Now they're saying if the ball lands in between 3 attackers from one team, and it's probable that they're going to get the ball, the coach can call a timeout, which opens up. So we've gone from making it easy for the referee to call a timeout or in possession, not possession, to now that, well, we think you're in possession because you've got three of your attacking players around the ball. So if the coach calls a timeout, we give you the timeout, even though you're not actually holding the ball. But it's 99% that your team is going to have the ball. So we've gone from making it easy to making it a little bit harder. But it's once again we come back to this common sense and understanding of the game. There we are. Look at that.
Right on cue. It's when 99% that the attacking team's going to be in control of the ball. So if it rebounds back into your half and there's no other defenders up in that half, just the attacking players, the coach can call a timeout. Don't need to have to control the ball, so we know he's going to get it.
Wow.
There we go.
Glad I don't have to think about that anymore.
Always something new. Thanks, Noel.
Thank you, Danny. Now, down the bottom of my screen here, he's just popped up a little while ago, is our second guest, President of Victorian Water Polo, Micahel McNeill. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
You're looking very well.
Yeah,
Now,
a lot of friends there.
we're a friendly bunch. Now, Micahel, you can be a member of the panel now. If you turn on your little chat box, we can all communicate with each other and away you go. But in the meantime, we are going to talk to Russell now and talk to him about his life in water polo. And he's had an exciting recent time. But let's go back, Russ, to the beginning. Right, you're a Kiwi.
Way back, 30 years in Oz now.
Right, you were a Kiwi.
I got the frontal lobotomy in 1995 in the hope of watching Australia play the Olympics in '96. I just wondered if I did the right thing.
Well, the accent's still there. Can't get rid of that.
Yeah, not the teeth though, not the teeth. I'm losing the teeth.
96 was not a good year. And were you involved in water polo in New Zealand?
Yeah, I played. I played for 55 years now, and I did everything I could do in New Zealand. I played for the national team. I refereed. I coached. I did all I could, and then decided once I came to the World Champs in '91, it was a good time as manager of the New Zealand men's team. Saw how good Perth was. I just shifted over that same year and been here ever since.
So, Russell, you're very widely recognised in the press corps at many events. When did you start McKinnon Media? I mean, I think I still have the McKinnon Media, or you still have the McKinnon Media hotmail address or email address, and how did that all come about?
Well, when I came over to Perth, I was looking for a job, something to do, and then a friend of mine phoned me up one day and he said, "Hey, a local newspaper is looking for an editor. You might be interested." So I got involved in that, and I thought I had to produce an invoice each week And then I came up with Boyd Milligan came up, why don't you call yourself McKinnon Media? So I did, and so that started up in 1992. And then I just started taking on all sorts of minor media jobs. I got very heavily into WA Rugby Union. I was their media man for 11 years because I had a big rugby background as well, and mainly reporting in rugby up to test level. And then I've just been doing that ever since, and doing whatever goes, and it's led right up to the last 4 years. I've been producing a caravan magazine in Western Australia.
Fantastic. You joined the Grey Nomads. Well done.
Not me. No, I don't have a caravan. I don't want to be there. No, I just produce a magazine for them, write stories, take photographs, sell the advertising.
What's it called?
Fantastic. Sorry, what was it? What's the magazine called?
Yeah, what's it called?
WA Caravan and Camping.
Okay.
So it's for the WA caravan clubs. We've got 33 clubs in WA with about 800 or 900 caravans, and so it's a specific group of people who go out on rallies once a month, and every third year they'll attend a national rally. And I was the media manager for the national rally in Albany 2 and a bit years ago, and the next one's in Barmera in South Australia next March.
Fantastic.
Sounds good.
Now, Russ, from 1995 to 2011, you were the Australian Water Polo Media Manager. Tell us about some highs and the lows and what stands out through those years.
Oh, well, there's, it's great that in 95 we did the tour around the country with the Italians, which was a great time. It was a pretty sad time for Paul Oberman. With the fires were going on over in New South Wales, so that wasn't too good. Paul jumps out at 3/4 time in the match at Sydney, was it New South Wales or something? We were there, and I want to use your phone to see what the state of the fire is. So that was a bit of a low for Paul, but that was the first tour that I came around on, and I just enjoy being with teams. I really enjoyed 2012. The Olympics, watching the players, and for me to watch new players come into the team who had no fear of shooting shots from outside, especially down the left-hand side, and scoring a poultice of goals. You get an intense pride in that. I suppose standing behind the USA team 2000 in Sydney, the women, and Australia winning with that last goal with 1.3 seconds to go, and then trying to explain to 30 USA media how they lost. And I had to, for half an hour, the television, there was about 30 of them, and I had to draw diagrams, and they were just stunned. How could USA lose? It wasn't about Australia winning at all. But no, just attending a water polo match, it doesn't matter what it's like. You come back from Olympics and referee an under-12 match or something, it's fantastic. Just to see the enthusiasm of people, and from my point of view, watching from my it's a unique position to be in, because I'm not particularly interested in who wins or who loses or whatever. My job is to report what I see, and to get that enthusiasm or the sadness or whatever, because in water polo half the people are happy and half are sad. So that's the way it goes. There are winners and losers most of the time, and I just enjoyed every time I've gone down to the pool. Just going down to Masters and jumping in the water last Sunday morning, was fantastic, because I had a shoulder operation, so it's the first time I've thrown a ball in 15 months.
Russell, you just said, you sort of briefed on a little bit that you just report what you see. Have you ever been any controversy that you've reported on, that they said you shouldn't have said that, or next time you can't do that? Do they try and zip you up a little bit, or you have a free range to do whatever you want to do?
You mean Greg McFadden in Beijing said, I'm going to murder the referee? Yeah, that was quite interesting, because we're in China, and of course working for the Chinese, I was working for the organising committee, and Greg says, I want to kill the referee or murder him. And luckily, from my point of view, there were two, Ron Reid, Ray Wilson, two Australian journalists were in the mix zone when he said it. And my flash quote guy was from the USA, and he took it and he said, he said this, can we report it? Of course we can report it. Both journalists came up to me, Russ, listen to this. We've taped it. Can we use it? Please do. I said, because the Chinese are going to censor what I send through. They'll censor it. And sure enough, it was censored. And the young fella came to me, we're journalists. They can't do that to us. I said, who's paying your wage? He said, oh, the Chinese. Yeah, they can do whatever they want. But it's okay because the two Australian guys got it. And I think it was the Sydney, one of the Sydney papers, page 2 and page 3, I'm going to kill the bastard. So that was, to me, I was very happy because we reported something, and in that stage it was there. Then another good one was Asian Games, and we're in Shenzhen, I think, and Uzbekistan. They came out of the water, and only one guy from Uzbekistan could speak English, and he was the goalkeeper. And I had a very young 14-year-old reporter with me, a girl, and she said that he said, I want to kill him. And I said to the girl, write that down, you know. And I said, who do you want to kill? And he said, number 7. I said, write that down. I said, on which team? He said, my team. Right. What did he do? It's what he didn't do. And we got all this. And then the following day he walks past again. I said, you come, you talk? He said, yeah. That was the end of him. So we never got any more quotes from Uzbekistan. But I got to tell you, another good one in 2000 was we have all these flash quote reporters, and they were working long hours in 2000, and Hungary came up, and the girl says, can I interview Tamas Kashas? And I said, yeah, sure, Tamas over here. And she looked at him and said, Tamas, I love you. And pulled her away, pulled my pad out of the back of my belt. Now, Tamas, tell us about that. Sent the girl home for the day. But no, there are, those are the major times that people do it. But I had a good one, 98 World Champs in Perth, when you guys were playing. Was Italy, was Ratko was coaching Italy at the time, and he was mouthing off to about 30 Italian journalists on that, and I was just waiting back my turn to get the quote off him, and he said something to them, pushed them away. Russell, come, and he said the referees, they cheated, and I said, yep, okay, what did they do, Ratko? Yeah, because you realise you'll get sanctioned if I write this. And he said, no problem, you write it. You sure now? So we published it, and then the next thing you know, Lonzi, Ratko, yeah. And he was given a warning, you know, like the time he kicked the signs and then got the 1-year ban. But
oopsie.
Yeah, but I said, hey, I'll report it if you want me to.
Mate, I'm sure you've got plenty of stories. We could fill up the whole hour with those stories. But in your experiences, and you've been there for a long time now, do you think that there's anything that we can do to promote water polo better, both from Australian point of view and from a world point of view?
I think it's interesting because people, you have half a dozen main sports on TV, right? And that's all they produce, you know. So they have, AFL will have vast teams of journalists feeding the stuff. So in WA, for example, we'll get rid of all the reporters from the newspapers, and we'll just use all the stories fed by the AFL. That's why it's 90% AFL in our paper. I think we have to be more proactive, and it comes back, you know, when we have a success, we have to trumpet it. In 2000, you know, I kept asking the board, what are we going to do when we win? You know, and had no idea if we were or not. And up to 3 days before they won, oh yeah, no, we're still thinking of it. And I think we have to be more proactive by getting our players out there into the community. I think nowadays I'm seeing more water polo people appearing on television, for example, whether it's the uniform for the Olympics or something, other things. And we've got to create events really that cut the imagination, whether you're in Sydney Harbour or the icebergs or whatever you do, it's got to be done. But it comes right back to people wearing a water polo t-shirt when they go out to a non-water polo event. You've got to go back to the basics and do all that sort of thing. Your pools, your swimming pools must have posters of water polo players on them. You know, that's where you're going to attract new people. And the number of people who go through pools, you know, those are the sorts of things we have to do.
Yeah, it's a great point that you raised. Now, just recently, and you mentioned you've been appointed to the International Swimming Hall of Fame as the president. Now, what does the job entail? And tell us anything that you've done since the appointment.
Oh yeah, chairman. I'm chairman of the honorary selection committees for the Masters Hall of Fame and the International Hall of Fame, and I've been on that now since about '99. And I've been in the executive committee since 2007. There's about 10 or 12 of us, and since we've been on a Zoom call with the CEO and the lady who deals with it at the Hall of Fame in Fort Lauderdale, and we've reshaped because I've been pushing for this for a while and that's probably why they made me chairman, because I want to get the committees for each discipline with a chairman and a small committee. So somebody like John Whitehouse, Don Cameron are on the water polo subgroup, and then they'll have a chairman who we've appointed Gergely Zherka from Hungary to look after, and each has a chairman, and then they select the people. So for example, excuse me, you'll have a player like Debbie Hanley, for example, who should be in the Hall of Fame, and I've been trying to push her for the last 10 or 15 years to get her into the Hall of Fame, but the general populace says it had been done that somebody from Paraguay, Synchro, is voting on who's Debbie Hanley. I've got to hang on a bit. Oh, she was 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It's 40 years ago now. And you think, oh, it's a bit far back. But Brenda Villa, oh, no, I heard her name. I'll vote for her. And we're trying to pull in, and there will be a host. We've decided we're going to bring a host of water polo people in one hit to catch up on those lost people who should be in there, because historically the Hall of Fame was all about US club people, coaches, players, or something like that. But if you want to get into the Hall of Fame now as a player or a swimmer, a player, water polo player, you have to have an Olympic gold medal to start with. But you could have come pre-2000 for women when there was no Olympic gold medal, or you could be a player who ends up with 4 silver medals or 3 silver medals, which is very hard to do in water polo, but has picked up. So you might get an Aaron Younger who picks up all these titles around Europe and stuff, and then he might qualify so that somebody, male from Australia, could be considered. But it's very hard to get into. We have about 400 or 500 nominations each year. We've got to narrow them down to maybe 100 across the disciplines, and then there's a group of about 150, 160 people around the world who get the final vote. But we're now narrowing it down that only water polo people will vote for water polo, and only synchro will vote for synchro. And then that way, the people within that group will be far more knowledgeable on who the nominees are.
Well, I'll tell you what, Russell, if Debbie Handley was playing now, she'd be running amok internationally, and they certainly would know all about her. And as much as I think that Brenda Villa is a very, very good player, well, she wouldn't want to come close to Debbie. Debbie might destroy her. Anyhow, that's another story. But actually,
that's exactly why we want. You know her. You probably coached her, did you?
I did coach her, and
Yeah.
I found someone who's got some vision, and I'm trying to see if that vision is actually usable, because it's a long time ago, and it's on beta.
I'm beat her up.
Those
No,
were the days.
But though we might need that footage, because there will come a time, I hope I'm still alive, that we can get her in there, because they're the sort of people we must champion. And then we've got to get those people into our public and champion them. I remember, for example, there was, I was commentating down at Bicton one time, and I said, please welcome Olympic gold medalist Daniel Woodhouse when she comes in. And somebody from a family came up to me and said, why are you mentioning that? And I said, she's an Olympic champion. She's arrived at the pool. We've got to champion those people. They are who they are. They're the history. People quickly forget, and we've got to keep pushing that these people are who they are.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely right, Russell. We just don't do that enough.
No.
She's got a FINA World Championship gold medal, so that's all she could do, and she did it. Now, I've got a question here on our Q&A box. Well, just to go to show, we'll ask some difficult questions. Russell, why did you stop working for Water Polo Australia?
It came to a time, it's interesting because, there's a use-by time for everything. It came in, for example, I did the same thing with rugby. That came to the Super Rugby time. And all of a sudden, if you're going to work for Super Rugby, you now have to commit yourself full-time to do that and go with it for as long as the flow will go. But you have to do it. And I think with water polo, it came to everything changed. A lot of us moved out or moved on, but it came to the time for, with the technical side, the Facebook, the LinkedIn, all these sort of things that were needed. I did the Facebook for many years, the website for many years, but it really needed other people to take it on. It's very hard to do that for a long time. Like for the website, I kept it, I would change it every day for about 10 or 11 years. I changed it every day to keep it updated, and you wear yourself out doing that sort of thing. And then, but with the new generation of media type people who are around who are very tech savvy, that's what was needed. That's the way to do it. And I think it'd drive me nuts.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was during COVID last year, Russell, you brought around all of those DVDs, and we were looking through the number of players. You have obviously such an extensive knowledge there of Water Polo Australia and the games played and everything there. So my final question to you, Russell, is you've mentioned that you're going to the World League, or you're not going there, you're doing remotely from home. Georgia and the men, and Tbilisi, Georgia, and the women. Athens in Greece. Tokyo, you going? Are you excited? What do you think? Is it going to be your swan song?
Well, who knows? Paris is not far away. There's a use-by date comes for everybody, and I see yesterday, they elected, or a couple of days ago, we elected our new president for FINA. A new executive director was named. Things will change. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You go with the flow. I know Tokyo is a tough one because even the people in the FINA office don't have flights to Tokyo as yet. We're not quite sure what hotel I'm in. I don't have any flights. So I need the letter of invitation and get the good to go. I know that Westy put his good to go in or apply for his good to go because he was the commentator for water polo, and they looked at it, Olympics, nah, sorry. And then he had to say, but I've got a signed contract, do it. And they said, oh, okay then. So I've had to tell FINA, you know, make sure the letter is strong enough for me to get it, because the window is now only 2 weeks that I have to get the good to go and then get there. And I'm excited. It'll be an opportunity to go. You know, it'll be really hard trying to pick people up with face masks on. You know, I had to pick somebody up, a friend's wife from the airport a few weeks ago, and she had a mask on. I couldn't pick her. So it's going to be hard interviewing players and coaches with masks on, but it'll be a unique experience. You have to be there. If you, as you guys know, you've been to the Olympics, you know what it's like. It's something else again, and you know, it's only regularly only 4 years, and it's like an athlete. You know, if you miss out for some reason, you're injured, your whole career is between the Olympics. It's sad. You know, you're a long time dead. Basically, you've got to go to the Olympics. You've got to experience that and just be part of it. And I know in my case, you know, we can't get the live streaming like I'll do with Georgia and Athens, FINA streaming, so I can do that quite easily, but can't do it for the Olympics. You have to be there.
Well, we're excited for you, Russell. Hope you get there. I'm sure you will. Thank you for joining us tonight on The Whistleblower. Please stay on the panel because we've got another fantastic interview. I'm very confident, Macca, that you are going to be as insightful as Russell, the president of Victorian Water Polo. Water Polo Victoria is Micahel McNeill. We're going to grill him tonight about himself, but also about the state of water polo in that the southern state that's always in trouble nowadays. Macca, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Minnie.
Now, we'll talk about you first. Where did it all start in water polo for you?
Well, I was probably about 8 or 9, and I used to spend my time down at the Richmond pool because we were living in Richmond at the time. And then the school that I went to had water polo and also had a water polo old boys association. So I ended up with Wesley Collegians that eventually became joined up with Melbourne Water Polo Club and became Melbourne Collegians. So that was the start. And as a 14-year-old, and I moved through school water polo into club water polo.
I thought I'd get Danny to ask you the next question because he's from Victoria, but he's
Sorry, I was just studying somewhere else. So, Macca, can I? As you went from school water polo into water polo. When did you first become, say, coach, team manager of Richmond? Could you say you were Melbourne Collegians?
Yeah, I played probably about 150 games at MC, and I took a little gap, maybe 2 years, when I got married the first time. And I was down swimming I was living in Richmond again, and I was having a swim there, and Jeff Barrow said hello. And a couple of weeks later, he asked, would I be happy to coach the Richmond women's team? So that happened. I'd never coached before. So Jeff, you might remember, was the CEO of Fujitsu Telecommunications, and he had employed quite a lot of seriously good water polo players. So he used to drag me into there and into the boardroom, and those 5, 6, 7 superstars taught me how to coach. A unique way of learning how to coach.
And some very unique players that were teaching you how to coach, Macca.
Yeah, exactly. Julian Musprat, Fargo, Ray Mayers, Doug Cocking. Obviously, there were superstars in the team already, Andrew Whiteman, Adam Coffey, Mark Ruby, I mean, the list just went on and on and on. So it was a wonderful time to be around Richmond, I have to say.
Some great memories there and great players that you mentioned. And so from your coaching, you then progressed into refereeing. Was that a natural progression, or how did that occur?
No, it was I was still a innocent coach, I guess. I was laid into coaching, but it was one of those things that I moved from refereeing after Richmond won the first National League of their 4, and I'd injured myself quite badly with a ruptured disc in my back, and I couldn't swim. But it was basically changing directions. It just hurt too much, so I decided to become a referee, and never looked back.
So, and Micah, how did you get into refereeing? Like, who did you go speak to say, I want to be a referee now?
The funny thing was that when I was at school, George Daniels, which some of you might know, maybe Victorians would know, he gave me the flags probably when I was about 16 years old. So I was doing some school games and doing some training games, and then it sort of moved along so that when I was doing club stuff, I saw that there was, a few other people volunteering to be. I think we were volunteers back then, Dan.
Yes.
That we stupidly, and I decided that I'd volunteer to be a referee, and I was hoping that I'd get better and better, and that eventually happened just basically through a long-term experience of doing a lot of games in Victoria.
So, Macca, you mentioned George Daniels there, so we must be talking, well, he coached me at school, so that was in the 80s, early 80s.
Yeah.
But you progressed pretty quickly. So you went through, and then in 1991, you started refereeing National League. Is that correct?
Yep. I did a couple of nationals. I think the last one was 1990, was it, in Brisbane? And I was doing those, and then the situation came up where the National League came up, and there were better people than me to be able to coach the Richmond men for their next 3 national titles. And I must admit, I enjoyed refereeing. So I jumped into the National League when that started in 1991 or 1992. I've forgotten.
Yeah, we've got 91 here, and then through the National League, now you went onto the FINA list. What year was that you got put on FINA?
I got on FINA in 1996. It was a funny situation because I'd been refereeing the Nationals and lots of games in Victoria, and I finished, I was out of a job at one stage and in Brisbane, and Bruce said, well, I've got a girls' camp. Why don't you come in for that and do the game practices, and then obviously drink a lot of beer with Brew. And at one stage I said, how do you get to be an international referee? And he said, oh, would you like to? And I said, yeah, if I'm up for it, I'd love to do it. Suddenly, 3 days later, Peter Kerr's on the phone, and Peter basically grilled me. Would I stick with it? Would I be, very diligent in representing Australia as a referee? And hopefully for 9 years I did that. But it came to a bit of a sticky end at the end.
Well, I mean, that's a low light coming to a sticky end. You can talk about that in a minute. What about the highlights?
The highlights were wonderful, I have to say. I enjoyed every single minute of being an international referee. Made a lot of good friends. Enjoyed going to some very lovely cities and pools throughout Europe and America and Asia. So it was absolutely wonderful. And I'll have to say that one of the best things I did after I finished, or when I was thinking of finishing, was to talk Daniel Flav into taking the gig from me, because I'd already decided I was going to leave. And he was in Barcelona at the time, 2003, and we were sitting down having a couple of beers, surprisingly.
Yeah.
And over about another 8 hours, I talked him into it, I think.
Only took a few beers. Eh?
Yeah, beers does that.
Hey, Michael. Oh, sorry, Paul, you go.
No, so Michael, you talk about a sticky ending. Does that have anything to do with the Olympics and not going to the Olympics, or going to?
Well, it was probably a precursor. So 2003 was the Barcelona World Championships, and I thought I was having quite a good tournament. Most of the delegates were very happy. I did a game with the Greek women, and the game was, I think the final was 10-8, and Greece had lost to Germany. And so I was dragged in, well, not dragged in, I went in for a conversation with the delegate, and the delegate was, I think, the younger fellow from Cuba. Was he the younger one, or the... he was the delegate anyway. The other one was on the FINA Bureau. And he ripped me a new one, and he didn't stop. The thing that really, it didn't bother me because I didn't really respect him anyway. But the fact was that Danny DeVito, the Greek delegate, was standing, facing away from me, making sure that this guy gave me absolute hell. Now, the stats in the game were the Greeks had the best of it was 10 to 8 in the exclusions, and the Greeks only had 8 exclusions. The problem was that their goalkeeper just couldn't save anything that was a long bomb, and one big German girl, I think, shot about 6 of them. And unfortunately, this fellow gave me a real talking to. The good thing was that Lonzi and John Whitehouse were pretty good about it. But the thing at 2000, the game was quite brutal. You guys, I can't remember whether you guys were playing still then in 2003, but the game had become really brutal. And I must admit, I just stopped enjoying because I've always been a technical referee, and I've always tried to do it very well. And the fact that the Europeans were just letting anything go on, just ridiculously anything. And it was funny because in the men's final, which I think was Russia versus probably one of the Serbian teams, I can't remember then, but the kick-out count was 31 exclusions. And I got into a load of trouble for 18 exclusions, and obviously they weren't all mine. But 3.5 weeks later, I had to go back to New York for the final of the World League final, which was held in Long Island. Lovely hotel there as well. When we had the technical meeting before, the fellow who's the FINA, head of FINA, I've forgotten his name, the Romanian guy. Micahel, thank you. He came in, which I'd never seen him in one before, and all the coaches were there and all the managers were there. And he went off and he said, the problem with water polo now is the referees. He said, the referees, they let the players swim up, they let them do a couple of passes, they kick out the centre back, and then they have a rest and they keep doing it each end to end. And at the end of that conversation, I looked around and I could see the horror on the coach's face. He said there'll be no more than 6 exclusions in any game. And can I tell you, the carnage was incredible. There were guys that had bites on their ears. There were broken ribs. There was there was everything going on in this game except water polo. And Thomas Kashash, he walked up because it was in Long Island, and ESPN was filming it live. Thomas just put his massive arms out and said, "Is this the way you want the game to be played?" And they fined him $5,000 for talking to them.
Mm.
So on my flight home, I wrote a letter to John Whitehouse and I said, "Sorry, mate, that's it for me."
Mm.
So that was the ending, Paul.
Michael, just one thing. One of the great photographs I've got of you is standing there with your arms folded on the podium, and it was at Sydney, and it's funnily enough a Greek coach having a go at you, and you're bland as anything, and not a problem. But can you tell us the worst situation you had with a coach?
Ooh, it was more delegates that gave me some grief, but there was a coach in a small town in Italy, northern Italy, beautiful, lovely town, and it was a girls' game, a girls' competition, and I fucked up for sure. Excuse me, I stuffed up for sure, and unfortunately, the Italian referee across the other side didn't help me out either. He just gave me some incredulous looks. But the problem was the delegate was Fuchs. Now, all of you old guys will remember A.B. Fuchs, I think his name was. He was a rotten piece of work as well. But he gave it to me after the coach gave it to me. I'd already received 10 minutes of it, and then I got another 30 minutes from him. And I actually wrote him a letter, and I apologised. I did get it wrong, etc. And suddenly A.B. Fuchs was my best mate.
That's what we all need to do then. We all need to write letters.
Exactly.
I'll teach you.
Now, Becca, can I ask you, that was your worst one. Now, I might be to jog your memory a little bit here, but world champs in Fukuoka,
Yep.
Was there anything left behind when you left, or referees maybe missing flights, or can you sort of fill us in?
It was one of those, well, as you know, you all know it. The fact is we found a place to be able to have a drink every night after the games. And there was a funny thing. It was a 40-foot container that had been turned into a bar. And it was just the referees. We used to go, and I'd had a slippery initiation with our wonderful friend from Slovenia, and we'd been waiting for 45 minutes to get in a taxi to go back to the hotel after the games had been played, and there was about 5 of us, and we went to go in, and give me his name again, Dan. Margetta.
Boris.
Yeah, Margetta got in, and he was a brand new referee, basically. And I said, "Where the stuff are you going, mate?" And he goes, "I'm sitting in here." And I said, No, get back out, and you can come in when we've sat in all the seats. And it wasn't a great start with him. The fact is, we ended up really good mates because we like to have a beer after. And what you're talking about was the night before we were leaving, and I'd gone out all over Europe and in Japan, and I bought myself some really nice gear, I thought. And we finished drinking at about 3:30, and then I think Boris said that he had a bottle of vodka in his room and he'd go up and bring him down. So I was in the lobby of the hotel, and we drank a bottle of vodka. And I subsequently said, "I've got to go up and pack because we've got to be at the airport at 6:30. And so I went up, and Julie forgot all of the good stuff and brought home all of the normal stuff. I was
These things happen, but you're doing good PR work.
Exactly.
Now, time now to do some good PR work for Victoria Polo. Now, when I was young, it's a fair while ago, Victoria were the powerhouse in Australian water polo, full of Australian players, powerful teams, men, women, didn't matter. It was all happening, right? And now we've got no National League teams, and the perception from interstate is that the game is not going all that well. In a city of 5 million people, Melbourne, right, and a country, some country leagues and whatever. What has happened?
Well, basically the situation was, and of course I was around when they were that good, and Tom Hode said it to me as well, that Richmond and Melbourne were probably two of the best clubs in the world, not just in Australia. And it was one of those things that we had all the pool space we needed. All clubs had all the pool space they needed. For example, at Richmond, you would train on Tuesdays and Thursday nights for 2 hours. And on a Saturday, they would just kick all of the people that were in the pool at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and we would play a practice game during that time of the Saturday. And then we'd cross over the road and drink beers after it, which is how I learned to be a better referee than normal, because I had all of these incredible Australian players saying, you know, when you made that decision, you should have done this. And that happened every Saturday morning, especially when we were having a few beers. But to go back to your question, the fact is that we lost endless amount of water time. And I think that was the start of being losing the ability to coach younger kids the way we used to. The times, all of that time we had. I know, I remember also when I became a mate of Michael Hart's and Coggo's, that when they explained to me the high school competition that you had in New South Wales with 600 high schools playing water polo, that didn't also help the fact that we were a private school-based pool system, and we probably only had about 12 private schools playing. So it was a slippery slope, just getting worse and worse and worse. At the moment, we have a very good EO who is obviously ran New South Wales water polo, and he understands the sport. He loves the sport. And in the past, we've had some people who weren't really water polo people running the show, and that probably didn't help either. I was, at no stage did I ever want to be the president of Water Polo Victoria, but there was a groundswell that I was getting approached at tournaments. I was getting approached all over the place to say, would you be kind enough to see if you can right the ship in Victoria? I think we've done that now. I think we've got a really good high performance group, which is going to get a little bit bigger now. We've got an EO who is working exceptionally hard to make sure that we get as much pool space as we can. At the moment, it's still only MSAC, but we have a lot more hours being able to train in than we have in a really long time.
Mackie, you've pointed out, and rightly so, that the decline happened and you didn't have the juniors coming through. I've been fortunate to see some of that progress happening with some of the camps I've had lately, and some good Victorian juniors in both youth and juniors. But there's going to still be a period of time for those players to step up to, I believe, National League or AWL now. And I know, and I think it's no secret, that Victoria want to get back into the AWL. How do you think that you'll be able to sustain a competitive team for that?
Yeah, it's probably one of the hardest gigs in water polo or in any other sport. The fact is, it's very expensive sport, and for example, most of us know that to run a National League team in men and women is probably a minimum of $150,000. So there has been some discussion within Victoria that money might be available coming up soon. But really, we would need to get back a lot of players. I was invited a couple of years ago to the National League final, and it was Drummoyne versus Wests, and there was 5 Victorians playing in the grand final game. So it was one of those things. Everybody's disappeared, and we basically either need to build up our own kids, and as you've kindly said, Foxy, that there's some good kids coming through, but if it was going to happen in the next year, we would need to get quite a few of our ex-players back, and there's a few of them that are keen to do that. So we'll see how it pans out.
And is that the same for the women's side as well, I'm assuming?
Yeah, well, the women's side is Spindles has been doing an incredibly good job with high performance and also with his Richmond team. So there's some very good players in that. So the women's part of it is probably going to be another 2 or 3 years without the backup coming back from, for the men.
I can recommend a really good coach, Macca. Apparently the Footscray coach, won the last championship for the women down there. Maybe he could be doing something there.
He's a great man too. And it's good to have a beer with after a game. As long as I can run away at some stage.
So getting back to some refereeing stuff, what do you talked about, being told you could only have 6 exclusions in a game. You talked about, one game having 31 exclusions. I reflect on a game, and Danny was there at the World League in Serbia, in Belgrade, where Serbia played Croatia. And in the round game, I think there was 30-something exclusions. And then in the final, there was only 10 or 12. What do you think of the new rules or the new interpretations these days and how the game's actually going? What's your, if you're a referee now, what do you think?
The first thing with regards to international water polo is that the delegates are a problem. They don't speak the same language all of the time. Often you can get a delegate, from a far-flung non-water polo country, etc. So there's not, with regards to referees, international referees, they're often being given different messages, and of course if you don't follow those messages they'll give you a demerit or something like that, so that's not a good thing. With regards to the game, I still believe, and Danny really could answer this better than me, that the game seems to be more technically refereed, which is good. It's a much better spectacle when it is. So those two things is probably what it needs for us, especially at home. We need to have people that can actually coach our referees. And me personally, I think the best coaches for referees are coaches, water polo coaches, not other referees, not older referees, etc. I think the reason I was able to get to where I got was because I listened to players, good players.
So back in 2006, I think you were part of the Australian Referees Commission. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that might have happened certainly around there, because I decided to retire from National League, and it was just because I'd done it for 16 years and I was tired. I was asked, Whitey asked me if I'd be the chairman of the Referees Commission, and basically it was the commission at that time was all volunteers, and it basically was to make sure that the FINA list was as good as it could be, and otherwise it was to try and encourage young people to take up refereeing, and for us to find people that would teach them how to referee correctly.
Mm.
I think I did that for 5 or 6 years, and we new baby and all of those things. It was time to concentrate on my family.
On your family.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Go on, Dan.
No, I was going to diverse again a little bit, that's all. So I'm just sort of making now, you spoke about, trying to get back into National League and the juniors in AYC and all sorts of stuff. Are we getting any help from Water Polo Australia? Are we looking to ask them for help, or are they offering help to Victoria? Do they want Victoria back in National League?
Yes, they say they do, but I would need to have to wait to see if it ever happens to believe it. It's obviously very easy to say to Victoria, yes, you should be in there. I remember Peter Cleary, who was the president of South Australia, a great bloke. He said, really, you should have 3 teams if you've got 5 million people in your thing. But there's also the situation that I don't think the National League wants to get any bigger. And it's going to be hard for us. We're going to have a very good reason to convince all the other clubs that it's a good idea for Victoria to come back into the National League.
Right. No comments from the boys there. What about you, Michael? You're president of the State Association. How long will that last? And what are you currently doing in the game apart from that head honcho role?
Yeah, I'm still coaching at 2 private schools. I'm the head of aquatics at St Catherine's Girls' School, and I'm also the head water polo coach at Xavier College. So I've been coaching kids now for probably 35 years, and for some reason I still love it. There's times where I'm getting up early, turning up to the pool going, what am I doing this for? But the fact is, as soon as I start coaching, I absolutely love it. So that's continuing for me. With regards to Water Polo Victoria and my tenure there, I think this is my 3rd year. I always said that I'd do 4, but now that there's a bit of a groundswell for National League, I'm hoping that I've got enough experience with regards to National League that I could make a difference. There's my wonderful boys. I could make the difference with regards to a National League team.
There it is. One of the Davies twins is there, are they? Or both of them? You don't know what I'm talking about, do you? The Davey twins.
I don't.
Alan Davies boys play. They're going to play for Essendon, Foxy, and they go to Xavier, and they're starring now.
Oh, the 2 Aboriginal boys?
Yes.
They are superstars. They will be going into the draft. They're only in year 11, so next year they will definitely get a gig. I watched them play against a school that is the 2 rivals for the Catholic schools, and these 2 absolutely ripped them a new one. It was wonderful to watch.
Mate, they're only going to one club and they wear red and black. Okay. Father's son. So, Mac, it's been absolutely fantastic having you with us, as with you, Russell. And I can't actually, with due respect to everybody else, it's been really one of our better shows. Very, very interesting. And we do appreciate your time. We've got to get you back. Why not? Okay, gentlemen of the panel, we appreciate your time as well. Foxy, Paul, Danny, thank you very much. And of course, we have Noel in the back room there calling some shots, along with Scotty doing the pre-production. Thank you, gentlemen. Been fantastic. We'll be back in another couple of weeks with a guest that I don't know about yet, but judging by tonight's, it can only, whoa, we'll have to keep the standard up. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we will. And we'll see you then on The Whistleblower.
Thanks again.
There you guys.
Yes, yeah.